Welcome back. Let's take you to this now. Today marks the final opportunity for stakeholders to submit their written comments on potential changes to the national minimum wage. The National Minimum Wage Commission is currently reviewing these submissions and will release its official recommendations later this year. To speak more on this, let's welcome Zanele Sabela, Cosatu's National Spokesperson. Zanele, thank you so much for your time and good afternoon to you. So as we then await for the submissions to be finalized today and, of course, the Commission to make its decision later this year, just talk to us about your key recommendations as a Cosatu to the National Minimum Wage Commission for the upcoming adjustment. I mean, we saw in May of last year the Commission setting a 3-year goal for the minimum and its commitment, rather, to meeting those.
Hi, Unati. Thank you so much for having us. So as Cosatu, we actually handed in our submission about 2 weeks ago. Basically, we are very grateful that, not only grateful because we came up with the national minimum wage, and it has resulted in about 6 million workers coming out of poverty, like literally. This includes farm workers, domestic workers, security workers, cleaning, hospitality. We saw how 2 weeks ago, the young lady who came out on TikTok complaining about how they were being treated at her workplace at a restaurant. And that is a problem because no one is supposed to, at this point, being paid, especially hospitality workers and the other workers that I've mentioned, being paid under the national minimum wage, which currently sits at 27 rands 58 cents. And so as Cosatu, we have recommended that it should go up because that is what the Act says. The Act is very clear that every year there should be an adjustment to make sure that, that poverty alleviation function of the national minimum wage maintains. And so we have recommended that it goes up by CPI plus 3%. And that's what we're looking at currently. We're also trying to push for the fact that, normally it comes into effect in March of every year. We would like it to come into effect on the 1st of January of each year, because that's when, when it first came in 2019, it actually came in on the 1st of January. And so we would like that original anniversary to be kept in step with. And so that's what we're looking at currently.
And I mean, my next question was going to be, to that point, is the current national minimum wage sufficient to be considered a living wage in today's economic climate? And I see that you've factored in those, recommendations, especially when you consider that, the Commission has indicated that factors like inflation, collective bargaining outcomes and living conditions will also be considered during the adjustment period. How hopeful, though, are you that your recommendations in the climate where there's still criticism around the minimum wage, that you will get those suggestions factored in by the Commission?
We are very optimistic. We're very optimistic. You'll recall that at the beginning, people were criticizing it and saying it would result in job losses. That hasn't happened. But then it has had, the impact has been on the positive side of things. And so there were also some in the labor camp who were saying, it is a poverty wage. When frankly, about a decade ago, farm workers were being paid 6 rands an hour. And so when you look at how far it's come, and when at the beginning, when it came into effect, actually domestic workers were being paid about 15 rands per hour, farm workers 18 rands an hour. And so there was that gap between other sectors and those two. But in the meantime, what we've done, what happened was to give it some time to close the gap and then to catch up. And so it has caught up, but then we're looking right now that it should edge closer to 30 rands an hour, which would say that for domestic workers, the wage has actually just doubled. And the other thing that we are still concerned about is the EPWP and the CWP, the community workers who are paid by government. And we think it is unfair for government to say, other employers should comply with the national minimum wage while on their side they haven't been. So we are pushing for that there should be a closing of that gap, and then eventually that there will be an equalization of that gap, that, they would also catch up and be paid a minimum wage like all the others. We're also looking at the fact that, like 27 rands 58 cent is quite a tricky amount. And what with the Reserve Bank actually having stopped printing, like minting like cents, your 1 cent coin, 2 cent, 5 cent, 10 cents have gone out of circulation. And so it makes it very difficult for a worker who now is supposed to look at how many hours they worked and then multiply that by those very odd cents. So we would like it to be round up to a figure, to the nearest rand, to the nearest 50 cents, to make sure that it is actually workable and both the employers and the employees can work out how much they're supposed to be paid.
All right, Zanele, thank you so much for your time. Of course, Zanele Sabela is Cosatu's national spokesperson. Speaking there in light of today marking the final opportunity for those submissions, written submissions that is, on potential changes to the national minimum wage. The Commission will then be submitting its recommendations later this year, something that we'll monitor very closely.